Evolution is the study of prehistoric life inclusive of fossils, footprints and past climatic events. The remains of dead organisms become buried in the sediment as soon as they die. Along with this, they also leave behind bones and imprints which allow us to see what they looked like back then. Millions of years later, after their preservation as fossils, we all have come across the word evolution. Evolution is the scientific theory that explains the history and diversity of life. Ever wondered what plays a key role in providing evidence to support the theory of evolution? It's paleontology. Hello, this is Shivangi Anand Bharti and you are watching Secrets of Fossils. Paleontology, in simple words, is the scientific study of life of the geological past which is involved in the analysis of plant and animal fossils. When we hear the word fossils, we generally think about dinosaurs. But paleontology is not limited to dinosaurs only. There's a lot more to dig into. In today's show, we have two experts amongst us who will help us explore the world of paleontology. Dr. Chandramohan Nautiyal, a scientist and a science communicator who is a former scientist in charge of the radiocarbon laboratory of the Birbal Sahni Institute of Paleosciences, Lucknow. At present, he is the program consultant to Indian National Science Academy, New Delhi. Dr. Ashutosh Singh is an assistant professor in micropaleontology and oceanography in Delhi University. Currently, he is working on the biochronology of the world ocean. Welcome to our show, Dr. Nautiyal and Dr. Ashutosh Singh.
Thank you.
So, sir, Dr. Ashutosh, sir, I'll ask you first. So, as per you, what is paleontology in layman's language?
Okay. Paleontology term is derived from three different words like paleos means ancient, then onto means life, and logy means study. Means paleontology is the study of ancient life, whatever present on our planet Earth. Okay. It is a branch of natural science in which we are trying to study the Earth history. Means we wish to study about evolution of life, diversity of animal life or plant lives and their lineage, right? It is just like we can say that it's like investigation of crime scene where we are trying to investigate any event on the basis of clues which are scattered here and there, right? So in our case, as a paleontologist, we are looking for fossils. They are acting as a clues, and on the basis of all those clues, means fossil, we can study about the evolution of organisms, their distribution from one place to another place. Like we can say that if you wish to study any interesting book, then in that book, you must want that all the pages are intact, they are well numbered, right? And they are totally covered, hardbound or paperbound. It is entirely up to you, right? In case of paleontology also, here the rocks in which your fossils are preserved, basically in sedimentary rocks, we are having the preservation of the fossils. They are having layers, right?
Okay.
So in that layers, we are having fossils. All those layers are acting like a page of your book, and the fossils, they are acting like a page number. For example, just like if you wish to study about Mesozoic time, then the fossil dinosaur will tell you about that, okay, these are the pages from where you can study about Mesozoic. Or trilobites, they are present in Paleozoic time. So if you wish to study about Paleozoic time, then just find it out the number of pages or page number denoted by trilobites. So this is all about paleontology.
Dr. Nautiyal, I would like to ask you that where do the paleontologists work?
Actually, some people say that they don't work, they just enjoy. That's because they really enjoy their work. They can be working in the forests, in fields. They could be working around lakes. They could be going to the lake bottoms. They could be sailing across the seas for months together because their purpose is to get the fossils which belong to the time that has passed long back ago. Now, in the forest, for example, they could be looking for the sections where sections are exposed and they can easily get the fossils. Sometimes they have to dig up pits. In case of lakes, they could take cores from the lake bottom or from the sides of the lake. And similarly, even in the ocean, they could be boring or coring and taking out cores from the ocean bottom and collecting sediments.
So, before we talk further, let us take a look at the subdisciplines of paleontology.
Paleobotany. This field involves the study of plant fossils. Paleozoology is the branch that looks at the fossils of multicellular animals. Human paleontology is the study of prehistoric human and proto-human. Micropaleontology includes the study of fossils that are so small that a microscope is required to study them. These microfossils are smaller than 4 millimeters. Ichnology is the study of ancient trace fossils like footprints and burrows. Palynology is the study of organic material of a size between 5 and 500 micrometers like pollen and spores. Paleoecology is the study of the relationship between organisms and their environments to reconstruct the ecosystems of the past. Taphonomy is the study of the processes of decay, preservation, and the formation on fossils.
Coming back to you, Dr. Ashutosh, can you just tell us what are the different sources of evidence?
Well, as I told you earlier that we are having sedimentary rock, right, in which we are getting remains of organic material. They are preserved in all the sedimentary rocks like limestone and the shell, from where we are getting all those fossils. So they are acting as an excellent source for the fossil records. Means from, if you want to study about how we are having the origin of life and what is the evolution of organism and how we are having fossils, right? Means if you want to study about unicellular organism from multicellular organism, means bacteria to us human beings, then we have to look for all those sedimentary rocks in which fossils are well preserved. They are preserved with the preservation or deposition of sediments. So sedimentary rocks are acting as an excellent source for your fossil records. And as sir told us about deep sea cores, on which I am working. So we are digging a deep sea core from the ocean, from where we are getting microorganisms. They are very small in size in comparison to invertebrate fossil or vertebrate fossils. So they are present plenty in all those sediments. They are termed as ooze. So by isolation of microorganisms from the deep sea cores, we can study them under the microscope. So along with sedimentary rocks, deep sea cores are also acting as a source for your fossil records.
So your inputs were really valuable. It's time for a short break now. We will see you on the other side.
India Science is an internet-based science TV channel initiated by the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, implemented and managed by Vigyan Prasar. India Science on the URL www.indiascience.in is a bilingual channel with content in Hindi and English. It can be accessed on any internet-enabled device. This video platform is dedicated to science and technology knowledge dissemination with a strong commitment to spreading scientific awareness, especially with Indian perspectives, ethos and cultural context. The India Science mobile app can be downloaded from the Google Play Store and Apple Store.
Welcome back, and you are watching our show Secrets of Fossils. Generally, when organisms die and decay, they leave no remains behind. But in rare circumstances, a dead organism becomes fossilized. Fossils can be found in sedimentary rocks which are formed on the Earth's surface. The formation of sedimentary rocks is via the accumulation of particles like sand or silt. At times, plants and animals become buried in the sediment, which in turn protects them from the scavengers, organic decay or weathering. And once plants and animals are buried, water-carrying dissolved minerals may flow through the remains, which in turn lead to be preserved at the cellular level. It is so interesting to see how evolution has taken place. Let's know more about fossils from our experts, Dr. Chandramohan Nautiyal and Dr. Ashutosh Singh. So, Dr. Nautiyal, I would like to know how the fossils are formed.
Yeah, fossils can be formed in several ways. One, I'll give you a very simple example. If a leaf falls on wet sediment and then subsequently sediment comes and buries it, then over a period of time, this leaf remains buried under the sediment. Now, under the pressure, under the temperature, this hardens. However, the leaf is made of a lot of water also. And this water is gradually lost, and all you have there is a kind of a cavity or the impression of that leaf. So, lakhs of years later or millions of years later, when that sedimentary rock is broken apart, then inside we see the impression. So, we call it impression fossil. In favorable cases, sometimes the organic material of that leaf could also be left there without being lost. So that is a compressed matter, and that matter is a compression fossil. By looking at it, you can make out what was the shape of the leaf and some of its features. There are some other ways. For example, you know that sometimes this sticky material comes out, oozes out of some trees, amber, which we call amber. Now, inside that amber, sometimes insects can get trapped. And this way, they remain preserved over a very long time. There are other ways of formation of fossils. For example, there could be sometimes, if there is an animal, it has a bone. The inside soft material of the bone is lost, but the outside is always there. Now, gradually, the minerals which are dissolved in water come and fill up the space between the walls of that bone. And this way, kind of a structure is available which tells you what kind of bone it was. Sometimes there can be a mold formed in a manner and these minerals fill it up. Sometimes there can be trees, for example, the stem of a tree. If it gets buried in water and then sediment comes, but there is water which has dissolved silica in it. That gradually seeps in, and over a very long time, which could be lakhs of years, this silica seeps in, and gradually this whole tree trunk transforms into a trunk of tree, but made of silica. This is like a stone, and this is what we call petrifaction. So there are different ways in which these fossils can be formed.
Sometimes we can have activities of organisms preserved in rock bodies, because as sir told us about sedimentary rock, in sedimentary rocks, sometimes you are observing the activities just like burrows or tube-like thing. They are just suggesting us the activity of the organism. Just like suppose our footprints. Can we call out that footprint as a fossil after 10 days or 50 days or 100 days? Answer is no. Okay. Because fossil must be older than Holocene, means 10,000 years back in time. Then we can use the term fossil, and all these structures which are suggesting us the activity of the organism, they are termed as ichnofossils.
So coming back to you, so what are the techniques used in studies in paleontology?
Actually, in paleontology, we are using different techniques to study the fossils, right? Because in paleontology, we are having different shape and size of the fossils, from dinosaurs to bacteria, from cephalopods to radiolarians or planktic foraminifers, right? So we are using different techniques, just like for the, collecting samples. For that, we must go to field in some fossiliferous area from where we are collecting the fossils. Then in our lab, we are preparing the samples, means processing the samples. And after isolating the material from rocks, we are observing them under the microscope. And we are also using scanning electron microscopes. And along with that, we are also using some instrument like if you wish to do isotopic analysis, then mass spectrometer to do their oxygen isotopic analysis or carbon isotopic analysis. So these are some of the instruments which we are using, techniques we are using to study the fossil records.
Actually, there are a few more, as he said. We are these days also using Raman spectroscopy. Okay. We are also using several other techniques like X-rays. just to see whether without breaking a rock, we can find out what kind of fossil is inside that rock.
Okay.
So these are some of the other techniques. And then there are more sophisticated instruments now coming up, which relate to the dating of the fossils, how old they are.
Okay. Here I would like to ask you that is fossilization an improbable event?
Yes.
Okay.
It is a very improbable event. You know, when something falls, let's say a tree falls in water or an animal body falls in water, there are a lot of bacteria. If this is not anaerobic surrounding, if oxygen is available there, then bacteria and such things are likely to be there. They can eat up the organic material before it gets fossilized. That is one thing. So it has to be a very favorable condition for that. Second thing is that it should not be disturbed too much.
Okay.
If the body is lying, for example, a tree is lying in water, it should not be disturbed too much. If it's disturbed, then the petrifaction may not take place properly. So second thing, they are usually soft bodies thing. Many of these animals, many of these, many parts like skin, or they are very soft parts. So they are likely to be decayed, to be eaten up by the bacteria. So the chances of material, living material turning into fossils are really very, very odd. And this is really very, very surprising that we get so many fossils now. And this is because of the conditions at those times. But it's a very improbable event. You are very right.
Okay, sir. Dr. Ashutosh, so aside from fossils, what other information is there in the rock strata?
Actually, you can say that rock strata, they are acting like a book of history, right? Just like in history, we are studying about different ages, Mughal period or British period or before that, right? So all those strata, sedimentary rock strata, they are recording the history, whatever going on during that time. So apart from the fossils, if you want to study paleoclimatic variation, then by doing geochemical analysis, we can find it out the variation in the temperature, or even we can by doing the petrographic study or by doing geochemical analysis, we can get the idea about their provenance, means from where we are deriving the material and depositing in a certain basin. So apart from fossil records, chemistry, their petrology can give us the idea about some other things like paleoclimatic activities, tectonic activities, and depositional involvement of the sedimentary rocks.
Here I would like to know from both of you, so can any fossil be dated back also by such kind of methods?
Yeah, there are a lot of methods. And when we talk of, for example, pollen grains are buried in the sediment. If their age is up to, say, 40,000 years or so, then we can date that sediment by the radiocarbon dating method.
Okay.
Similarly, if we find some other fossil buried in the sediment, and if we date that sediment, because that sediment contains some organic matter whose origin is in the photosynthesis, because ultimately it's the trees and the plants after their death. That material gets dispersed in the soil, in the sediment. And if we date that by radiocarbon method, by association, we get to know what is the age of the fossil. But this is valid for, say, 40,000 years or so.
So that is a fantastic point which you made. It is time for a short break now. We will see you very shortly.
India Science is an internet-based science TV channel initiated by the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, implemented and managed by Vigyan Prasar. India Science on the URL www.indiascience.in is a bilingual channel with content in Hindi and English. It can be accessed on any internet-enabled device. This video platform is dedicated to science and technology knowledge dissemination with a strong commitment to spreading scientific awareness, especially with Indian perspectives, ethos and cultural context. The India Science mobile app can be downloaded from the Google Play Store and Apple Store.
Welcome back to the show Secrets of Fossils. Today we have with us Dr. Chandramohan Nautiyal and Dr. Ashutosh Singh, our experts on paleontology. Dr. Nautiyal, I would like to know, how can artificial intelligence aid paleontology?
Okay, that's a very interesting question, because these days everybody is talking about artificial intelligence. Things which are today done manually, for example, identification of the pollen, identification of the spores, this can be done using the help from computer. It can identify the image, recognize it, then it can put them in different bins, that these many pollen grains of this variety or this species, these many pollen grains of this species. So the work which would have taken weeks together can be done with the help of a computer or tomography very easily. And in identification of pollen, it can be used. Second comes the stage of interpretation. Even there, if we make a software which can help the computer to analyze what kind of pollen represent what kind of climate in the past. So even the interpretation part can be important from the AI point of view. So AI can be used, but at present it's not really being used much. People are doing it mostly manually.
Now, I would like to know that, do you have any exciting experience which you would like to share with us from your journey so far?
Sometimes, when you're working in the laboratory, I had said that paleontologists work in the field, in the ocean, in the rivers or near lakes. But the second stage of the work is in the laboratory when they bring the samples back to the laboratory. Now, those analyses can be done using instruments, and sometimes some unexpected situations arise. Now, what I'm going to tell is not exactly in the study of fossil, but we are making measurement in a sample of some gas, helium gas, and all of a sudden there was a spurt of gas which we were not expecting.
Okay.
It could not be measured. It would be out of scale if you wanted to measure it. But then it was present of mind, you could say, that we changed the input resistance from 10 to the power 11 to 10 to the power 8, and we were able to make that measurement. So this kind of moments sometimes come, which really excite you. When you are in field, there could be other experiences also. For example, we started for a field trip, and we thought we had enough diesel for the trip. But the route was so bad that we finished the diesel and it was already night, and we didn't know where to go. There was not a single soul to be seen. Finally, we caught hold of a person, and there was a place where he was keeping his cattle. So he was kind enough to offer us that place. So we had to spend night in that place over that straw and all. So this kind of, I think, things are very common for those who work in the field.
Correct. Dr. Ashutosh, what about you?
Actually, my experience is like that, like him only. When I was doing my postdoc at Physical Research Laboratory in Ahmedabad, I was working on deep sea cores. So I started working on foraminifers, planktic foraminifers, and we are trying to date that core. As sir mentioned about C14 dating, so we started dating using that dating technique, right? So we prepared 3 samples. And by using liquid scintillator counter, we started dating all those planktic foraminiferal tests by doing lab manuals, right? So we got the ages beyond the limit. Means, as sir told us that there is a limit for C14 dating technique. By the help of carbon dating technique, we can go up to 40 kilo years. Beyond that, we can't go. So suddenly, that thought came in our mind that why we are not getting any dates for this deep sea cores, because we are expecting the age of Holocene, that is around your present day, to 20 kilo years or 30 kilo years.
Right.
But by using C14 dating techniques, we are not getting any age. Then I started working, I started using my expertise, that is, as a paleontologist, I started working all those fossil after preparation of the sample under the microscope. And in very first sample, I got Globicerinioides fistulosus. It's an index fossil. Index fossil is just like a fossil which is having a very wide geological range, but very short span of time, right? So that GS fistulosus is acting as a marker between Pliocene and Pleistocene time. That is, as per geological time scale 2004, that is 1.8 million years. Of course, now we are using that some other dates for marking the Pliocene-Pleistocene boundary. But during those time, we were using GS fistulosus. So I I talked with my colleague that I got fistulosis in very first sample. So the age of that core must be older than 1.8 million years.
Okay.
So immediately we stopped working on that core, but that was very interesting thing for me. That is a very what we can say exciting.
So, Dr. Nautiyal, here I would like to ask you a very generic question: that how can one become a paleontologist?
Many people say that to become a paleontologist, you must study geology. But I think these days it's not enough to learn geology. One has to, of course, learn paleontology at the graduation level or post-graduation level. But these days, geosciences and paleontology have become really very modern. So along with that, one will also have to study the physical, chemical, and mathematical techniques and computers and using instruments. But yes, the basic thing in paleontology is identifying those fossils. They can be animal fossils, they can be plant fossils, so identifying them. Now, for identifying plant fossils, one has to have a background in botany. So for paleontology, I think it will be a very good thing if somebody has offered botany and geology at the graduation level. And if he has studied physics, if it's possible, then that would be really a great advantage.
Now we know how can one become a paleontologist. Dr. Nautiyal and Dr. Ashutosh Singh, thank you so much for coming to our show. It was great having you over here on our show. We have come to the end of the show. Paleontology incorporates knowledge from biology, geology, ecology, anthropology, archaeology, physics, chemistry, and even computer science. All these fields together help in understanding the processes that have led to the origination and eventual destruction of the different types of organisms since life originated. If you would like to send us your feedback or have any suggestions, you can write to us on the mail address provided on your screen. This is Shivangi Anand Bharti, and thank you for tuning to Secrets of Fossils.